So Mystical Agriculture is probably one of the most powerful resource generating mods in the entire of Minecraft. Each of these plants is actually producing diamond essence, which we could turn straight into diamonds, which is actually insane. So today we are going to be going over all of the basics that you need to know to be able to start and complete Mystical Agriculture. So to get started with Mystical Agriculture, you need this Inferium ore, which you can just break with a stone pickaxe. It's nice and easy and very early game friendly. Now once you break it, you will get this Inferium essence, and this is your basic building block for all of Mystical Agriculture. Now while you're down here, you might as well pick up some prosperity ore as well, and it will drop these items called prosperity shards. You need prosperity shards to make seeds later on in the game, and while it's not essential that you get them right at the beginning, you're going to need them pretty soon, so I'd recommend picking these up at the same time that you do the Inferium. You can find these at pretty much every Y level in every dimension, so there's no excuse, just go out and do a little bit of mining. Now once you've got your Inferium essence, you are pretty much ready to get started, and the first thing you want to do is automate the process of making Inferium, and the way to do that is through Inferium seeds. All you need to do is grab yourself some wheat seeds. If you haven't got any, just punch the floor and you'll get some eventually, and then you can just combine it with 8 Inferium essence to give yourself some Inferium seeds. Once you've got your Inferium seeds, just plant it in some farmland and just wait an extremely long time. Or at least that's how I thought it worked the first time that I did it. But there's actually a lot of different ways to speed up this growth. First up, you can just use a watering can, and if you just hold it down on your plants, over time it will start to grow a little bit quicker, and this is just significantly faster than doing the old-fashioned AFK at the farm. Now you don't want to be doing this forever, but it is extremely useful early game, and as you upgrade your watering can, you'll be able to do bigger and bigger areas, which will make it more and more efficient. Now another thing you can do is you can craft the different types of farmland from Mystical Agriculture, but they don't actually speed up the production of the actual essence itself. What they do is they increase the amount that you actually get from harvesting them. So if we have a look, the basic tier of Inferium will just give you 100% of the normal Inferium output, which is normally 1. But as you go up, it goes to 150, 200, 250, and 300 for the base mod of Mystical Agriculture. And then if you've got the Mystical Agri-Additions, then you can also get Insanium, which goes up to 350. Now, don't worry too much about how to actually craft these for the time being. We will cover that a little bit later on, but just know that the higher tier soil increases the amount of Inferium that you get. It does only work for Inferium. It doesn't work for all the other seeds, so just be aware of it, and when we get to that, we'll go into it in a little bit more detail. Now this one is going to depend on what mod pack you're using, because you actually need farming with blockheads for it, but you can use red fertilizer on the soil and then plant the Inferium seeds. And what that's going to do is it's going to increase the growth speed of any plants. And the great thing about this is it also works on all of the other seeds, and you can also combine it with the watering can and things will grow a lot quicker, as you can see on here. When I'm playing all the mods 10, which you can check out on the channel, this is my favorite way of doing things early game, so it's definitely worth looking into if you have access to the farming with blockheads mod. Now that you've farmed up a load of Inferium essence, you might be thinking, well, what can I actually do with it? Well, you remember that prosperity ore that we got before? Well, now is the time that we're going to use that, because we're about to go a little bit crazy with the crafting. So there are 3 prosperity items you need to be aware of. The prosperity ingot is going to allow you to turn 4 shards and 1 iron into a prosperity ingot. The prosperity gemstone does exactly the same thing, but turns a diamond into a prosperity gemstone, and then your prosperity seeds turns the wheat seeds into prosperity seed bases, which is the base for pretty much every single seed that you're going to be growing from here onwards, except mob seeds, but we'll get to that. So probably the first thing you're going to want to do is make this infusion altar, because this is where you make all of your seeds. It's really simple to make. It just uses stone, it uses some gold, and it uses some red wool, so nothing too expensive, and you just need to put a prosperity seed base into the middle of it. Now, if you're not sure how to set it up, when you set down the infusion altar in the middle, it will actually give you this cool outline of where these pedestals need to go, and you are going to need 8 of them, so just make sure you've got 8, put them down, and then when there's no holograms left, you know you've done it correctly. Now's the time to choose what seeds we're going to make, and I'm going to start with ice, because ice is a little bit of a pain to get a lot of the time. So the thing with mystical agriculture is you can't create progress out of nothing. You actually need some of the resource that you want to make the seed from. So in this case, we need 4 ice in order to make an ice seed. Now, what we can do is use 4 Inferium essence as well, and our prosperity seed base, and then we just need to give some sort of signal to this middle to make the ice seeds. I prefer using the wand, but you can just use a redstone torch. Any redstone signal will work, but if we then right click, it will do a cool animation which should have a sound, so feel free to make your own, and then you can make yourselves some ice seeds. And if you've been paying attention, you know what comes next. There we go, 2 ice plants, and each one of those plants gave us 1 ice essence that we can then use to craft more ice. Having something like JEI is really going to help you out here, because yes, you can use 9 ice essence to make 20 packed ice, but you can also make basalt using nether essence, you can also make 24 normal ice using 8, or even 12 snow blocks. So each essence normally has a few different uses. And the trick with mystical agriculture is exponential growth. You use the ice to make some ice seeds. You plant those seeds to get yourself some more ice essence. You craft that ice essence up to make more ice, and you use that ice to make yourself more ice seeds. And it carries on like that over and over until you've got all the seeds of whatever material it is that you want. And there are a lot of materials. If we look at the All the Mods 10 quest tree, you can see that we get wood seeds, we have gold seeds, we even have things like the All the Modium seeds and Nether Star and Dragon Egg seeds. Obviously, yours is going to be different if you're not playing all the mods, but the concept remains the same. So that's your basic seed crafting done, but there's a lot more to it than that. Even with the tier 1 Inferium essence, we can make some really cool things, such as this awesome armor set. And trust me, it doesn't just look cool. Although, I'll be honest, the tier 1 never really looks cool, but it doesn't just look cool, it's also extremely functional. The first thing you're going to want to do is combine the prosperity ingots we made earlier with 2 sets of Inferium essence, and that will give us some Inferium ingots. We then want to do exactly the same with the gemstones, and then what we can do is we can take a piece of diamond armor, add an Inferium ingot either side of it, and an Inferium gemstone at the top and the bottom, and that will make you a bit of Inferium armor. Now, as you can see, it's +3 armor and +2 toughness on the diamond, and exactly the same on the Inferium. The one time this is different is the boots, which has +3 armor as diamond and +4 as Inferium. So if you want the most bang for your buck, make the boots first. But you'll also see it has a thing that says Augments, and we have an empty slot. And that is where things get really interesting, because some of the upgrades that you can get for this sort of mystical agriculture armor are actually a little bit ridiculous. For example, if we put a couple of wither skeleton skulls and a couple of golden apples with 4 Inferium essence, we can then use this unattuned augment to turn it into a health boost augment. The process is pretty much exactly the same as you do with seeds, except you need an unattuned augment in the middle instead of the prosperity seed base. You can then just craft this up and it will turn into a health boost augment, and then run it over to your tinkering table and apply it to a piece of armor. Now, when we equip this armor, we will get a couple of extra hearts, which makes life a lot easier. Now, something worth noting is that health health boost does not stack. If you put it on loads of different pieces of armor and then equip those, you can only have one health boost at once, but there are a lot of other effects, such as getting absorption hearts, that will actually be able to help you, and you can use higher tier health boosts. Okay, so we've put this off long enough. What is this thing over here? Well, this is how you combine the different essences to make higher tier essences. There are 5 core tiers, so you've got Inferium to start with, that goes on to Prudentium, you then go on to Tertium, Imperium, and finally Supremium. There are a couple of other tiers that we will go through a little bit later on, but they are endgame or expansion, so we will cover them towards the end. So the key to this whole thing is an infusion crystal, and that will allow you to just combine 4 of one tier of essence up to 1 of the next tier. They are reasonably cheap to make, you just need 1 diamond, 4 prosperity shards, and 4 Inferium essence, and this will allow you to do the conversion 500 times. When you do get later on in the game though, you can use the Supremium essence to make a master infusion crystal that has an unlimited amount of uses, so you will never need to replace this. And it honestly is as easy as it sounds, you just combine 4 Inferium with 1 infusion crystal, and that will make the Prudentium essence. You then combine the Prudentium, and that will make your Tertium. You combine the Tertium, you will get Imperium, and so on until you get to the Supremium tier. Now you might be thinking, hell, what are the benefits of having these higher tier essence? Well, let me show you. Probably the most important one is that you can grow higher tier seeds. So for example, if you want a diamond seed, you're going to need the Supremium essence. You need 4 of those, 4 diamonds, and the usual seed base, and it will be able to make you some diamond seeds. And exactly the same thing applies here that it did to the ice. You can then use the diamond seeds to grow more diamonds, to make more diamond seeds, and so on. And so you have an entire farm like the one you saw in the intro. Next up, you can get the better tiers of armor. And there's 2 things that this does. Firstly, it increases the actual armor itself, as you can see in the health bar. And secondly, you can upgrade them with better augments. So for example, the health boost 4 gives you 8 extra hearts instead of the 2 that we got from tier 1. And you can only match the tier of the augment to the tier of the armor. So for example, if you want the tier 4 health boost, you're going to need either tier 4 or tier 5 armor, because that will allow you to put it on. You cannot put a tier 4 augment on a tier 3 piece of armor. Now it is worth noting that you can also get the tools from the different tiers of essence as well. Everything from scythes to pickaxes, hoes to sickles. And as you go up the tiers, the tools just generally get a little bit better. So if you have a look at the sword, for example, it does 8 attack damage, whereas if you have a look all the way up the Supremium sword, you're all the way up at 24. And something special happens at tier 5 as well that you may be able to see here, and that is that your tools become unbreakable. So you could theoretically mine 1,000,000 blocks without any issues at all, and your pickaxe would never ever break. No need for unbreaking, no need for mending, absolutely none of that. It just lasts forever. And that becomes extremely useful when you're harvesting the farm, because you can put an unbreakable hoe in here and then you just leave it. You don't ever need to deal with it again. Now it is worth noting that the armor never actually becomes unbreakable. You're always going to need to deal with that side of things, but the tools and weapons can be, which makes it nice and simple. So those are the basics of how to get set up. So now we're going to go into a little bit more in-depth detail, and we're going to start with how to get this farm in the middle set up like we had in the beginning, because obviously this is nowhere near as efficient as it was then. The first trick to getting an efficient farm is to make a massive hole under it. Seems a little bit strange, but trust the process. We then want to be making these items called growth accelerators, And what they do is they speed up the growth of any plants that they are below. Now the cool thing is that as you go up the tiers, these blocks affect things further away. So the Inferium growth accelerator will only go up 9 blocks, whereas the Prudentium does 18, then 27, 36, 45, and 54. You can see the pattern there. So what you're going to want to do is put a block of dirt where you want the seed to grow, and then underneath that, put 9 Inferium growth accelerators. Now this is the maximum that you can get with tier 1, but that by itself actually makes quite a big difference. If we take these 2 bits of farmland and we put a diamond seed in each of them, you can immediately see there is a massive difference in growth on the one that's above the growth accelerators compared to the one that has no accelerators under it. So even if you're only at tier 1, it is worth getting these as soon as you possibly can. But of course, we're not going to stop there because I'm going to show you how much of a difference all of the other ones make. So what we have set up here are the ones which are no growth accelerators, then you have 9, 18, 27, 36, 45 and 54, and as you can see, every 9 you have to change to the tier higher. But let's have a look and see just how much of a difference this is going to make. So we planted it from left to right, and as you can see, there is a little bit of variance, but the ones on the right are typically sprouting before the ones on the left. And when you do this across the full farm, yes, it's going to be really expensive to do, but it is definitely worth it. So I've maxed this farm out, and as you can see, it's already pretty much grown the second that I plant them. It's kind of a little bit ridiculous how fast this farm is. But now we have a slightly different problem, and that's that we need to gather all of these, and doing it by hand would be an absolute pain. So, depending on the mod pack, there are a few different options. The one that's always going to be available to you is this harvester, because that is actually part of mystical agriculture. So what you can do with the harvester is put it on the edge of your farm facing inwards, and then over time it will take this 3x3 area and occasionally it will take the essence from it and it will build up in here. This is reasonably cheap and it's always going to be there, so it's definitely worth looking into. And the good thing is that you can upgrade this as well. The same way that you upgrade the normal tools, you can upgrade these ones as well. So you start with a standard machine upgrade base, and then as you go up, you need the previous tier to upgrade to the higher tier. Now, once you get all the way up to Awakened Supremium, it actually works quite well. It uses a lot more energy, but it will actually do the whole farm, and it does it in a row like that, as you can see. Now, the only problem is this is slightly inefficient because, as you can see, it doesn't do the check all of the time. It does take a little while to do, but it is certainly better than harvesting it by hand. Now, a much better option if you've got access to it is this harvester pylon. So you can put this down, you can put in a hoe, and then put a chest on top, and what will happen is it will automatically harvest this 3x3 area. Now, what you can do is go into it and increase this area, but the only downside, as you saw there, is that it does use durability on the hoe. So if you want to do this, you want an unbreakable hoe like the Supremium one, and there you go, it will harvest these much, much more efficiently. The only real gripe that I have with this is the fact that you need to break the seed in front of it to actually get access to it, or break the chest, which seems like a bad idea. Otherwise, you can't click it because it overlaps with the seeds, which is a little bit frustrating, but there you go, that's what we have to deal with. But the good news is this will auto collect in the chest, and as long as you are pumping it out of this chest, or you have a chest that is big enough to handle all of the diamond essence, then you should be good to go. You can also use modular routers, and as much as this pains me to say, that's actually not the most efficient option because it checks things much, much more frequently and will cause a lot of lag. So I would always recommend using the harvester pylon, but if you've not got access to it, you can always set something up with modular routers as well. So I did also say I was going to cover the other 2 tiers of essence in mystical agriculture. So the first one is Insanium. Now, Insanium is very easy. You just just get 4 Supremium Essence and put it through an Infusion Crystal, and then that gives you Insanium. Just be aware though, this may not be in your mod pack because it is part of a separate mod add-on called Mystical Aggreditions, so if you can't see it, you're just capped at the tier 5 stuff. The Awakened Supremium, however, is going to take a little bit of redecorating. There we go, that looks significantly better. So, what you're going to need is an Awakening Altar, and that's going to awaken your Supremium to, surprisingly enough, Awakened Supremium. Now, the great thing with Awakened Supremium is that it actually has extra augment slots. So normally you can only have 1 augment on each piece of armor or tool, but now if you augment it with Awakened, you can have 2 augments, which makes things a lot more powerful. Now, you might be looking at this and thinking, okay, I get the orange wool, I get the gold, but what is this brown stone here? Well, that is called Soulstone, and we need to head to the Nether to get it. And it's also going to help us a little bit later on when we make ourselves some mob farms. So you will find this soulstone pretty much everywhere in the Nether. I can see 1, 2, 3, and 4 different patches just from where I'm standing. Oh, make that 5. So we just need to go down here and mine some of this out, and you will also see there is some Soulium ore in here, and you're going to need this later on, so collect as much of this as you possibly can. Once you've got a bunch of the Soulium, just make the items behind us. They are really easy to make, just there's a bit of glass, a bit of gold, and a bit of orange wool, but you should be pretty much good to go. What gets a little bit complicated are the items that we then need to use for the awakening process. The first part is nice and simple. All we need is a Supremium block. Now, inside the essence vessels, we actually need some tier 1 materials, but not Inferium. We actually need earth, air, fire, and water essence. And how you get these is crafting your tier 1 earth, air, fire, and water seeds from Inferium. So if we have a look at the air one, you'll see that you need some air agglomeratio. Not quite sure what that means, but we need it. And when you look at what that is, it's just a glass bottle, gravel, dirt, and clay. Nice and easy. The rest is pretty much the same, but you've got different items for this agglomeratio. So yeah, have a look at those of what you need, and then craft at least 1 of each of the seeds. Once you've got 10 of each vessel, you can then just put each one in a different essence vessel, and then that is what you need for the awakening. And now we're only missing one thing, but that thing is the hardest to get, and that is this cognizant dust. If you look at JEI, it tells you need to kill either the Wither or the Ender Dragon with an essence weapon enchanted with mystical enlightenment. Now, your essence weapons are your things like your Inferium or your Prudentium weapons, something like that from Mystical Agriculture. Now, by far the easiest way to get this is to use this enchanter from Mystical Agriculture, and what you can do is just combine some Supremium essence, some experience essence that you get from experience seeds, and a book to make a Mystical Enlightenment book. Now, you can get this all the way up to tier 5 if you put enough stuff in here, so it is definitely worth doing. Now, all you need to do is throw that on a sword, and you are ready to go harvest the materials. What I like to do is craft this witherproof bricks and witherproof glass, which you can do from wither skeleton essence, and then make a little box that a wither cannot break out of. And then when you kill the wither, it is going to drop this orange dust here, which is the essence that we need. If we then add the dust onto all 4 pedestals and activate the middle section, you will see it will make an entire block of awakened Supremium. And that is basically your top tier for armor and weapons and tools in Mystical Agriculture. Now, there is one thing that we haven't touched on, which is actually extremely powerful, and that is mob farming. Mob farming is a completely separate section to Mystical Agriculture, and it gets incredibly good when you can make things like blaze seeds or experience seeds, breeze seeds, all of this sort of stuff, which all rely on the mobs to get them. Now, there's a couple of ways to go about this, the passive way and the active way. Now, regardless of which way you choose, you need to make some soul jars, and they're made using Soulium glass and Soulium ingots. The soulium ingot comes from that ore that we found in the nether earlier, and the soul glass comes from breaking down the soul stone that we had before. You need to smelt it twice to get it to work, but then you can just combine that with any sort of glass and you will get yourself some soul glass. I would honestly recommend making a bunch of these because you are going to need quite a lot and you don't want to be stopping halfway through to craft some more. So let's look at the passive way first. All you need to do is you need to get this item here called the soul extractor. It's pretty easy to craft, doesn't take anything too crazy, so you should just be able to follow the JEI instructions for it. And then all you need to do is give it some power, put the soul jar in here, and then use whatever drops from the mob that you want to farm. So for this one, we'll do creepers. Creepers drop a lot of gunpowder. So if I put the gunpowder in, slowly over time, this soul jar is going to fill up with creeper souls. And exactly the same as the harvester, you can upgrade this to use more energy to run faster. So if it seems like it's a bit slow, that's because it is at the moment. And you're going to need 4 full soul jars to be able to make a single seed. So definitely stock up on these. Now, once you've got the essence you require and the soul jars, you can just make them as you did the previous seeds. However, the prosperity seed base won't work in the middle. For mobs, you're going to need a soulium seed base. And to make the soulium seeds, you just need to use the prosperity seed bases from before with some soulium dust. And as we said before, you get that from breaking down the soulium ore. And once you have that, you can activate it and get yourself some creeper seeds, which if you put down will grow into a creeper plant, which you can then harvest for creeper essence. And then funnily enough, you craft the creeper essence into gunpowder, which you can then use to make more seeds, and so on and so on. So that is the passive way to do it, but obviously requires you to have quite a few drops from the mob already. Probably best if you've already got a mob farm and you're just wanting to upgrade it. Now, the more active way of doing this is to have a soul jar in your inventory and make a soulium dagger. When you then kill mobs with this, what should happen is this should then start filling up. As you can see, we have killed 1 sheep out of the 8 that we need to fill it up. Now, if you want to make this process even quicker, you can upgrade your soulium dagger to either favor the passive mobs or favor hostile mobs. But each of those is going to require you to have full soul jars from different animals. So for the passive one, it's pig, chicken, cow, and sheep. And what that does is it increases the amount of souls you get in your jar from killing that type of mob. So for example, if we get this chicken and kill it with a passive knife, it will actually do 1.5 souls instead of the 1, which is nice. It's a little bit of an upgrade. A 50% is something you can't really complain about, but it's not going to be a sort of make or break situation. You can actually further increase this by enchanting the dagger with the Soul Siphoner enchantment, which if you've got Soul Siphoner 5 gives you another 50%. So there are ways of speeding this whole process up very nicely for you. And that is how you make a fully functional mob farm using mystical agriculture. That should be pretty much everything that you need to know to get started and go all the way to the end game with mystical agriculture. If you do have any tips or tricks for anyone, make sure to leave them down in the comments below. I know there's much more efficient ways to get your farm running than this, but this relies just on mystical agriculture, so definitely one of the simplest ways of doing things. If you do want to see more guides or you want to check out my SMP series, then feel free to subscribe. Also, make sure to like this video. It really helps me out a lot. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. My name's Hellfire Mage, and I will see you next time. Bye!